Among the many performances that led to India's win over England in Rajkot, the young Yashasvi Jaiswal's contribution was truly special. The 21-year-old left-handed opener became India's first batsman to score two double hundreds against England in tests. In this test match series alone, all the hype was about how India would be able to counter Bazball. But really, it should have been about how unprepared England was for Jaisball, wasn't it? So now Jaiswal has smashed the most sixes in a test series for India and has become the first ever player to hit 20 sixes in a test series worldwide with 22 overhead boundaries against England in the ongoing series. In just 7 appearances for India, he has amassed 861 runs, which includes two double tons and 100 to go along with it. And not just this, he also has a couple of knocks of 50s as well. Now, to discuss the rise of Jaiswal, we are now joined in by Vedam Jaishankar, who is an experienced cricket correspondent with a career spanning almost 2 decades, during which he has also traveled extensively and covered cricket and has closely followed Jaiswal's rise and his upbringing as well. So, thank you, Vedam, for joining us on this discussion.
Quite a pleasure joining you, but let's make that 3 decades. Yeah,
Three
I think.
decades, yes. My bad.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a lot. 30 years of
Yeah,
experience.
I've
And
covered
then,
the game in all the continents for
just to put that
major
into
news.
context, the cricketer we are talking about is just 21 years old. So
Absolutely.
with Vedam, if you have to put that into context, he's had 9 years of experience more than Jaiswal here. So, all right. So let's talk about
Absolutely,
Jaiswal.
I agree with you. But
Yeah.
the thing is, just like in real life, uh, what we are experiencing is a transformation that we are experiencing. You know, from whatever our analog world to our digital world, we are really living that experience. I mean, the next generations can't tell the same of it. Likewise, in cricket, we actually we've seen the whole gamut now, from Test
Mm.
cricket to one-day internationals to now T20 cricket, and the thought process has changed. So much of thought process has changed. So much of the mental attitude has changed. Physical fitness. I mean, if you look at the Indian cricketers of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and I would even say 2000s, you saw that they were not really fit. I think Dhoni's coming in changed that. But now you see the cricketers are so fit. At least most of them are so fit. And Jaiswal is a classic example. The boy was, he grew up in Uttar Pradesh. You know that he grew up in Uttar Pradesh. He shifted to Bombay to pursue a cricket career. He was just 12 years of age. Kid, absolute kid. And, but he had hunger. He really had hunger. And the boy went through a lot of hardships, virtually staying in the tent of the groundsman and trying to make his living by selling pani puri, making pani puri, those kind of things. I mean, it was a tough life. But then I guess when you come across somebody like that, they really value every single chance that they get. And that is what has happened with Jaiswal. And at some point of time, when he joined the Rajasthan Royals, he was, the most shocking aspect, at least for me, was that he was matching somebody like Josh Butler. His opening partner was Josh Butler, the famous English cricketer, who was a battle-hardened guy. And Jaiswal and they looked on par. I mean, he didn't come back or he didn't look very inferior or anything. He looked on par with that guy. So you knew this chap was a special. He had special talent. And kudos to Rajasthan Royals. Somebody like Zubin Barucha, the former Mumbai cricketer, who's also a talent scout and data analyst for Rajasthan Royals. He set about trying to do something with this guy's ability and technique, and he knew he had the mental aptitude. And they chose a place just off Nagpur, I think about 70, 80 kilometers from Nagpur. They chose that place and they identified what are his weaknesses and how he had to get over it. Now, I'll
Yes.
digress on this just for a minute, just to tell you the background. You know, Somebody like Barucha, the more I look at it and the more I read about it, I think he is a very keen follower of the 10,000 hour rule. Now, the 10,000 hour rule was propagated in the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And what he said is, if you put 10,000 hours of hard work on anything, on any skill, maybe you want to become a violin player, maybe you want to become a table tennis player, anything. If you put 10,000 hours, you become an expert. You can become a great musician,
Hmm.
even if you don't have talent for music, if you put the 10,000 hours. So he put that 10,000 hours was a magic number that he put. Maybe it's not exactly 10,000 hours, but you can understand the amount of hard work that needs to be put.
Yeah.
So what Barucha did was he identified that Jaiswal was slightly weak on the leg side, and he set about saying that each day he had to hit 300 shots, particular shots. So what happens is your muscle memory takes over. If you hit like that for 5, 6, 7, 8 days, your muscle memory takes over. The minute the ball is pitched there, you go for it. And that's exactly what he did. Another thing he did, and again I digress from it just for a minute.
Hmm.
The Australian Ian Chappell is a great fan of baseball. Great fan of baseball. If you looked at cricket, maybe during the 70s, 80s, 90s, fast bowlers were always worried about their shoulder. They would not throw. They were worried about their shoulder. They would either underarm the ball or just throw dollies. They would not be that hard, flat throw. Maybe the West
Hmm.
Indies were the exceptions, but they had so many fast bowlers at that time, and they could throw fast. But otherwise, all the other bowlers, whether it was England or Australia or India or anybody, they
Hmm.
favored their shoulder. They never threw hard, the fast bowlers, because they didn't
Okay.
want their shoulder to go. But what Chappell did was he noticed what was happening in baseball. A baseball thrower was throwing something like 500 balls per day in practice or match. 500 and nothing wrong. They played baseball for 15 years, 20 years, and there was nothing wrong with their shoulder. That's
Okay.
when the Australian Cricket Board and their NIS, that is their coaching scheme, they
Hmm.
studied the techniques of baseball. They brought over baseball, throwers and coaches to teach the young Australians on how to throw safely. So
Okay.
suddenly, throwing itself changed in cricket, and today virtually everybody throws flat.
Hmm.
Because the throwing action has changed. There are a lot of gadgets. There is one particular gadget which looks like a fish, and if you throw it the right way, air rushes through it, and the whistling sound comes. If
Okay.
if you don't throw it the right way, you won't get that whistling sound. So there are a lot of gadgets like this to for them to control and perfect their throwing. But from baseball, we got that perfect throwing, longer, better shoulders, longer duration. Of course, from games like football, the Yo-Yo Test was taken to get
Hmm.
people more fit. So Yo-Yo
Fitness.
actually was used for football, and it came into cricket. But what happened here was Zubin Barucha, who stays in America actually, he decided that he would study baseball hitting techniques. He
Okay.
looked at baseball hitting techniques where they extend the arms, when go for power, and he used all that on Jaiswal. And if you look at the way Jaiswal is hitting those 12 sixes, I mean, it didn't come just by chance. There's
Yes.
a lot of hard work which has gone in. I think in Jaiswal, he found a willing pupil, somebody willing to listen and willing to
Hmm.
experiment and
Hmm.
hitting with the right technique. I read somewhere about Zubin saying that he's still not happy because Jaiswal doesn't extend his arm right out. The elbow is still bent at the time of hitting some of those shots.
Hmm.
He wants to correct that. So I'm sure once that is correct, he's just 22 years of age. I'm sure once he corrects that, this guy is going to become a big battering ram, especially in that position that he bats in. So I
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think what has happened is he's got youth on his side.
Hmm.
He's got. I'll come back to the youth in a minute. He's got youth on his side. He's got ability on his side, and the temperament is ideal. Now,
Hmm.
when I said I'll come back to youth, if you look at the way the Indian selectors over the ages, it's not today, right from the 60s, 70s, they have pushed a batsman when
Hmm.
he is very young, 19, 20, 21. So if you look at J.R. Vishwanath, or Sunil Gavaskar, or Dilip Vengsarkar, or Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, you can take a whole lot of them. They've all been pushed when they were very young, 19,
Okay.
20, 21. Sachin, of course, was an exception. He was pushed when he was 16. But
Yeah.
what it does is mentally, The guy has got youth and arrogance on his side. He is not bothered whom he's taking on. In fact, he looks forward to pulling down a few reputations. If you tell him that he is going to take on James Anderson, he loves it. He's not
Crazy.
going to be
Yes.
challenged by him. He wants to
Mm.
pull down the James Anderson's reputation. He's looking forward. That's what I said. When it's youth and arrogance, but that arrogance that you need to pull down such big figures, you also need some ability. You know,
Yes.
by the
That.
time a youngster realizes, sorry, I didn't
Mhm.
hear that.
No, that arrogance, he's developed it. But it's not just that arrogance. Like you said, it's come with a lot of hard work and grind that
Yes,
he's combined, and he has that flamboyance, and he also has that sense of crease occupation, if, that's the term to use, that he's able to time his innings, he's able to time his shots, and have that understanding of the game. He's not ultra aggressive. He's not like a Sehwag we had, or like not even like a Shikhar Dhawan per se. He has his own mindset that he is bringing into the game, isn't it?
you're absolutely right. So when you look at it, look at the amount of hard work he puts in. He has worked out on what where his weaknesses, and those weaknesses have actually become strength for him.
Hmm.
He always had the temperament. So now he
Hmm.
had to fine tune, and he's done that brilliantly. See, arrogance can be negative or positive.
Hmm.
Arrogance can be used as a positive force if, like you said, you back it with a whole lot of other things. Otherwise, arrogance is hollow, it's a negative force. So he's
Yes.
backed it with a whole lot of other things. The ability to stay there, to respect the bowler when respect is required. And then when
Hmm.
you're on top, then go after him. And, in these kind of cases, when youngsters are thrown into the deep end, it takes them a year or two for the real thing to sink in. What have I
Hmm.
done? That feeling. What have I done? But by that time, he's got about 4 or 5 hundreds under his belt. He's up and away. He's not done it, then he's in trouble. So many of
Hmm.
these people whom I mentioned were people who realized, like Sunil Gavaskar, very first series, 774 runs. At the end of it,
Yes.
he believes he can take on the world. Now, that's what it does. But the arrogance backed by a lot of ability.
Hmm.
Sachin took a knock on his face. He broke his nose in his very first series. But he had the ability. He always had the ability that he was the best. And there was a brother to him to keep telling him you are the best. And
Hmm.
it's just a question at 16, you don't mind that. By the time he is 17, 18, he was up and away. He was one of the final batsmen in the world. And later, by the time he came into his 20s, he was the best batsman in the world. Same with
Hmm.
Virat Kohli. So I think when you look at it, Jaiswal is there at that stage. He's at the
Hmm.
stage when he wants to pull down a few reputations. When he hammered somebody like Anderson for 3 sixes in 1 over, he would have actually taken delight in it. He would have, one, he wanted to show his ability, and second, he would have taken delight in pulling down somebody like Anderson. There's nothing wrong with it. Sport is like that. When you place shots like that, you walk with your chest 6 inches ahead of you, and that's exactly what you need. Sports
Hmm.
needs that. And Jaiswal is a real gem. I think we've really got a big gem.
Yeah. Vedam, also the one point that you made, I want to come back to it once again. The baseball technique that, the baseball training that Jaiswal underwent, has it basically helped them sort of uncomplicate his approach? He doesn't have any real exaggerated trigger moments, which we see with a lot of T20 players nowadays. He has very minimalistic, like, back and across movement, and he's able to shift his weight backwards or forwards depending on the ball and the length of the ball, and he's able to do it very effortlessly. Would you attribute it to that training that he's got through Zuman?
Yeah, he has used a lot of those techniques. He's got a steady base. But you
Hmm.
look at the upper body movement, it gives it everything. He gives it everything. Just like in baseball, they give the upper body everything.
Yes.
And the extension of the arms, the arms are extended away from the thing. And if you get the meat of the bat, that's going to fly. And that's exactly what happened with him. Some of his shots would have been six in any ground. When I say any ground, the Adelaide Oval, the straight is about 110 yards, and he would have cleared that. It was that big, those sixes. So I think what has happened is we have married those technologies or techniques into the hitting arc, as you call it in cricket, the upper body strength and the upper body rotation is
mm,
also being married into cricket. Cricket otherwise was, you play in the V, you play straight, your elbow, your top hand elbow is on top, and you hit between mid on and mid off. All that is still there. It's not that they have disappeared; they're all still there. But when you want to hit, you open your shoulders and you use your top upper body, and you hit, use a lot of bottom hand. That's exactly what he is doing. And the fact that he's able to marry both, that is couple
mm,
both the
mm,
conventional technique and these kind of shots, is what makes him such a, I mean, it's wonderful to watch the guy bat. You
mm.
could take so much delight watching him bat.
That's
he,
true, Vedam. There's one point I just need, your comment on as well. Basically, here after the Rajkot Test, Ben Duckett, he made a sort of very strange comment, saying that when you see players from the opposition playing like this, it makes us wonder if we should take credit for, that they are playing differently than how they played Test cricket. But that's not true, is it? With Jaiswal, it's his form. He has put in the hard yard, and it's his way of batting. He's aggressive naturally, and it's very bizarre that someone from England is able to come in and say, we, because of our Bazball sort of cricket style of cricket, Jaiswal has evolved into this sort of cricketer.
See, England says they built the Indian railways, and we all know what they did with that. They used the railways to go to the ports, and from the ports they smuggled and stole all our goods. So when they say they built the railways, it's only half truth. It's not the full truth, the half truth. Likewise, I mean, people. If you look at somebody like Matthew Hayden or Viv Richards, or even England's own Botham, they've all played this kind of cricket where they've gone hammer and tongs at the bowling. Why India, if you look at Sehwag was a very, very aggressive opening batsman. And
Yes.
what about Sachin Tendulkar, who destroyed Shane Warne? He destroyed him. It just didn't depend to him. He destroyed him. So I think it's rather ingenuous of Duckett to say that they discovered this kind of batting and
Mm.
others are copying
Yeah.
them. If at all, if yeah, sorry, if at all anybody has to get credit for this, then you might as well give the credit to T20 batting,
Yes.
because T20 is when you listen, you need to bat aggressively. But the difference between T20 aggression and this is T20, it doesn't matter if you lose your wicket.
Mm.
What you had said earlier about Jaiswal's batting is just that he's not trying to lose his wicket. He might have lost his wicket early in the first innings, but look at the way he batted in the second innings. If the ball deserved respect, he gave it respect. In
Yes.
T20 cricket, you're not bothered. It doesn't matter if you get out. If you get a quick 20, quick 30, you would have won the match for your side. Here, that's
Mm.
not. You need to go the distance. And the way he handled, yes, he really went the distance. And if you look at the batting of his,
Mm.
before the injury, he got 100, 104 not out. The back injury, he retired. He came back, he got another 100. That's
Mm.
110. So literally in one innings, he's got 200s. One before the injury, one after coming back. So 214 not out. And if Ben Duckett wants to take credit for that, God help him.
Wonderful, Vedam. This was a very insightful discussion. The biggest takeaway being that Jaiswal's baseball technique and that developed has basically destroyed Bazball of England. And now we are going to see a lot more of Jaisball, aren't we?
Yes, you will. Yeah, definitely, because he's just 22 years of age. The
Yes,
22 years of age, you don't know what he can really achieve. He's done this.
absolutely.
What I think the first test he got 80 odd in an innings. The second test he got a double hundred. Third test again he's got a double hundred. I mean,
Yes.
look at the guy. He's phenomenal, and he's just 22. The scary part is how good can he get when he's 25, 26,
Hmm.
or he's 27, 28. I mean, he's got the whole world in front of him. And I think he is one
Absolutely.
of the guys who's come up the hard way. He will value his success. His head will be screwed solidly onto his shoulders, and I think he
Yeah.
will deliver. He's got all the
Yeah,
right
that's the
things.
thing, Vedam. That's another point I wanted to make. We see, we've had a number of young players coming through from the T20 cricket, IPL. One player that springs to mind is Prithvi Shaw. There was so much potential in him. We talked about him as well. But Jaiswal, what sets him apart? Is it basically his upbringing and the grind and the hard work and his ability to stay rooted? Is that what is going to, hold him good in the long run?
Absolutely, because I think each of those things that you mentioned has been a life changer for him. Getting for a young kid to come from UP and stay in a big bad city like Bombay, it's a frightful city for people who've not been frightful for a 12-year-old boy to come there and not knowing what the future holds for him. Those are the
Mm.
lessons in life that he has learned. He's not taken the easy way out. He told his father he needs more time, he'll stay there. His father
Yes,
wanted him to come back. He stayed
correct.
there. There was no place for him to stay. He went and stayed with the groundsman. He had to pay for his living. So he was, making those panipuri. So each one is a lesson, and that is what he will grab. And my own view on this kind of thing is, if you really look at the team composition, you will find fewer and fewer players coming from the big cities of
Mm.
Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai, or even Delhi. Most of the cricketers today are coming from the hinterland. They are tough and they know what it is, and they don't have too many distractions. They don't have to worry about running away with, for a dance or a get together or whatever. They are there, and for the very fact that he's moved to a small village near Nagpur for the last 2 years and he's been training there says everything. No distractions. It is like those scram schools that you have at Kota. There's
Mm.
not even a single ball in Kota. So the kids only have to study, 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 and they all get into IITs. It's just like those cram schools. You go to some place, you're given the best of facilities, you have nothing else to do. If you have to go home next day, come back to the ground. There's nothing else to do. It's like those cram schools, like I said. And yes, I think Jaiswal is benefit from that. And I only hope he keeps his head screwed on his shoulders, which I think he will, because
Mm.
looking at his background, the hard work that he's done, and yes, there is so much of talent. If somebody like Jaiswal can last in Indian cricket for like 6, 7 years, he would have done his job.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Vedam, for joining us on this discussion and shedding light on Jaiswal's technique and what really is his sort of success formula to say. And all we can do is hope for the best. And in the coming two tests, I'm sure we're going to see more centuries and a lot more of Jaiswal in the T20 and also for India as well. Thank you so much, Vedam, for joining us on this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.